book of Genesis, chapter 13, verses 8 to 11. And the word of God says, "So Abram said to Lot, 'Let's not have any conflict between you and me, or between your shepherds and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, I will go to the left.' Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. May God bless the reading of His word."
Any of us could have made, but Lot made the wrong one. He made the bad choice. And the real sad thing about Lot is that he made a bad choice. The Bible's full of people who make bad choices. The sad thing was it affected the rest of his life. His whole life, he never could overcome this bad decision that he had made. And how true that can be for us. We make bad decisions every day. All of us do. But then sometimes we have something like Lot in our lives. We have a decision like his that's a decision that affects our whole lives. And what we have to do is to be able to overcome that. Overcome the bad choices that we have made. And that's so we look at Lot today, because Lot couldn't do it. He's sort of a warning, or he's somebody who couldn't do this thing that so many others did. And maybe from his story we can learn a lesson from that. Well, who was he, first of all? Lot. Well, primarily, first way we know him is as nephew of Abram, or Abraham. He left with Abraham to travel across the Middle East. Abraham and Sarah going around the Middle East with all their family, all their servants, all their herds, and they're traveling around, and they're kind of looking for a better place to be, looking for where God wants them to be. And Lot was a part of that journey, and for years and years, he was there with Abraham. And he was right at his right hand, but Abraham was making all the big decisions. And then one day, the servants of Abraham and the servants of Lot, who were herding the different kind of cattle, the goats, and the sheep that they had, they got into a conflict. And they suddenly realized, I think Abraham probably realized, we're getting too big. We're having a hard time moving around. We really need to separate into two different groups. And this happened all the time in the old days. The groups would get bigger and bigger if they were successful. And finally they get to a point where they would separate. So there's nothing wrong with this. And Abraham says that, this would be a good way for us to separate. We still won't be real far from each other. We'll probably see each other from time to time. But you go this way and I'll go that way. And Lot, I'm going to give you the choice. You get to decide which way to go. And we're in an ideal spot right here because Abraham took Lot up to the top of the mountain. And he said, look, this is a great place for us to split up. There's a beautiful valley down here, well watered. Looks wonderful. There's two vibrant cities down there. We don't know much about them, but boy, they look like they're nice cities. They look prosperous. You could go that way, or you can go look over here. To the left, there was a plain that stretched down to the ocean. It was the land of Canaan. It would become the land of Israel one day. And he said, you can go that way if you want to. And Lot sat there and he thought about it, and he wasn't sure, of course, which way to go. He didn't have all the information he really needed to make that big of a decision, just as we don't so often in our lives. We have some huge decision we have to make, and we don't have all the information we need to make that decision. But Lot stood there, and finally he looked down at that valley, and the valley just looked too good to him. Well watered, it was like a Garden of Eden, it says. And there were two great, looked like beautiful cities down there. And so Lot said, I'll go down there. I'll go down into this valley, and that's where my family will be. And Abraham can go off into Canaan. Abraham said, okay, that's great. That's great. Lot chose the valley instead of choosing the plain and went down to the ocean. And friends, that he didn't know it, and he wouldn't know it for some time, but that was a bad decision. What were those two cities?
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah, that's right. Sodom and Gomorrah, where all the people were evil in these cities. Like every person was an evil person. God would soon destroy these cities. Again, Abraham didn't know that, but he was headed down into a bad place. And then it was going to, after experiencing a bad place for a while, then it was going to be completely destroyed. The the sea would move in. And it would become the Dead Sea. It was so filled with salt. It's one of the most inhospitable bodies of water in the world. It's so bad that it poisons all of the land around it. You go to the Dead Sea, and it's not just the sea that's there that's dead. It is everything around. There's no life at all because all that salt gets washed up, and it kills all of the plants. It became a terrible place. Lot didn't realize it at the time, but he had made a bad choice. Again, we can't fault Lot for this. It wasn't like he did something evil. He just had a choice to make. He didn't have all the information he needed to make it the best choice possible. But we can relate to this. We make bad decisions every day. But we also in our lives have these decisions we made some time ago, way back. And that bad decision was so bad, or was in such an important area of our lives, that it still affects us. We still carry it with us in some ways. And at the very least, we carry some guilt about it. But we also maybe we carry out, it may keep us from making good choices in our life. This bad decision we made a long time ago, it could be a decision that we have yet to overcome. Again, making a bad decision isn't uncommon. It happens all the time. We do it all the time. Actually, it put Lot in very good company. That all the heroes of the Bible made some bad choice in their life, some bad decision. Everybody in the Bible, except for Jesus, made some bad choice. Think about King David. He was the blessed king of Israel. He was so powerful. He was so beloved by God, too. And he was so good at thinking about and understanding what God wanted from him. And yet David made many bad choices, one of which was killing his friend and general Uriah. And him killing Uriah caused a big revolt and caused unrest in his court. It took him years and years to overcome that bad decision. There's the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul, for the first part of his story in the Bible, he is not an apostle of Jesus Christ. He is trying to destroy the church, and he is so good at persecuting the church, he's so stubborn about it, that when he actually becomes a Christian, it takes him years to overcome that bad decision. It takes him years for the early church to trust him. They didn't want to have anything to do with Paul at the beginning, and he would have to come back from that bad decision. Talk to the kids today about Jonah. The person made a bad decision. And it took a lot for Jonah to overcome that bad decision. Running away, being thrown in the sea, being swallowed by a whale. Finally, after all of that, he was able to start down that path that God would have him go down. What God wanted for him. And something that reminds us of what God wants for us. God wants happiness. God wants abundance. God wants contentment. God wants joy in our lives. And any bad decision that's keeping us from that is something we need to pay attention to. We need to be aware of. This bad decision that we made long ago is keeping us from the abundance that God wants for us. Lot wasn't any different than so many of these people who made bad decisions. And in fact, Lot was really better because this wasn't a sinful decision. It wasn't an evil thing to do. He simply made a bad choice. So why did he fail so badly? He was never able to overcome it. He was never able to overcome that one bad decision that he had made. For instance, let's look down a little ways in the story of Lot. He's now settled. He is, imagine having to choose between Sodom and Gomorrah. So, okay, he chose Sodom. And he had settled there. And everything was going okay, I guess. But all of a sudden, an angel of the Lord came to him and said, listen, Lot, there's not a good person in this whole city except for you and your family. God's going to destroy the whole place. He's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Here's what you need to do. You need to go back to where you came, and you need to go to that point where Abraham and you had that discussion, and you need to get out of this valley. You need to retrace your steps. You need to, in other words, admit that you made a mistake and get out of here. And even in the face of that, even in the presence of an angel of the Lord telling him he had made a wrong choice, telling him what was coming up for this valley, he couldn't do it. He couldn't leave the valley. He stayed there. He said to the angel of the Lord, well, I tell you what, instead of leaving the valley, we'll go to this little town that's over here. this village. Now, if we go there, we'll be safe, I guess. And the angel said, yeah, you should be safe. He said, we'll go there and we'll stay there. And so even as the hail and brimstone are falling down, as this valley is being destroyed, decimated, there's Lot with his family, unable, unwilling to leave. Why is that? What kept Lot from admitting that he had made a bad choice and leave that terrible place? It's something he should have done right when he got there. Right when he got to those towns and he saw the wickedness of the people, that was God's first invitation to him to say, you made a bad choice, go back and find Uncle Abraham and get with him and go pick out new places to be. You should leave here now. But he didn't do it. He didn't do it. He stayed. What was it that kept him from admitting that he made a bad choice and then taking the steps he needed to have the kind of life, to be in the kind of place that God wanted him to be? Or maybe it was just his pride. Yeah, we can relate to that, can't we? Our pride in ourselves, our pride in our decisions, keeping us from admitting we've done something wrong, that we've taken the wrong course, that we've taken the wrong step. He couldn't admit that to himself. After all, that had been his first big decision as a leader, as an adult. All along the way, Abraham had been making all the decisions, but finally it was up to Lot to make a decision, this way or that way. And Lot made a decision, and it was the wrong one. It was his first big decision, and maybe he said because of that, I just can't admit that that was a wrong decision. Or maybe it was something else. Maybe he realized it was a bad decision. And he realized the very first decision he had to make, grown-up decision, he made a terrible one, an awful one, and maybe that scared him. And friends, that's one thing that can keep us from getting back on the track that God wants us to be, recovering from some bad decision that we have made. It's just fear. We've made one bad choice, we could make another. And so we settle for the law instead of the law of God, and instead of the gospel of God, we settle for the law of inertia. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. It's so much easier just not to move. We're just going to stay where we are. We're just going to stick right here. It's so sad to think about Lot, to think about all these opportunities he was given to get back on that right track. Because it's so easy. Jesus showed us throughout his ministry how easy it can be to overcome a bad decision. Let me take that back. Not easy. Not easy to overcome a bad decision, but simple. It can be simple to do. Jesus encountered a woman who had been caught in the very act of adultery. He saved her from those who were wanting to stone her. And then his advice to her to get her back on track was straightforward and simple. Go and sin no more. That's your first step on the road back to the abundant life God wants for you. Go and sin no more. When he encountered Zacchaeus up in the tree, he knew that Zacchaeus had made bad choices. That there were a whole string of them that had led Zacchaeus eventually up into that tree. And there he was at the end of a very bad road. And what did Jesus say to him? He said simply, Zacchaeus, come down. Come down out of that tree, and I'm going to come and eat at your house tonight. Well, right now, if you think about it, think of some bad decision of this last week, or perhaps some decision from your life you've never been able to come to terms with, to deal with, to overcome, to become peaceful with. What is the one step you need to take? If Jesus Christ was standing in front of you, what would he say to you? Maybe it's finding a support group. Maybe it's seeking out the forgiveness from some individual. Maybe it's taking on some personal discipline in your life. There's some simple first step that may not be easy. It's the first step on a long, tough journey. But it is simple. Take that one step and start back toward the abundant life that God has for you. Put that other thing behind you, because remember, God has forgiven you. If it was something that was sinful, something that was wrong, you, if you have asked, have been forgiven. And if it was like Lot, it just happened to be just a bad choice, nothing sinful about it, God is going to help you put that behind you. Head off in a new direction. Head toward a hopeful life. I think that's one of the saddest things about Lot's story, is as we imagine him hopeless. Living down in that terrible place, living in that society where they were doing such awful things, treating each other so badly, treating each other meanly, killing each other, all those things. Having no hope for the future. I tell you, we take that first step that Christ wants us to take. That willingness to take the right step in the right direction, and how hope again can fill our hearts and fill our lives. I remember one really holy moment that I experienced, and strangely, it wasn't at church, it was at a gas station. I was sitting, leaning against my car, filling up my car, and a woman drove up, and she pulled in right next to the pump next to mine, and she was an older lady, and she got out, and she looked at the pump, and she looked at her car, and she was clearly wasn't really sure about what to do next, and I wasn't going to say anything to her, but she turned to me, and she said, I've never done this before. My husband's always filled up the car, but now he's sick, and I've got to learn how to do it. Can you help me? And for me, that was a holy moment. Now, she hadn't made a mistake or done anything wrong that caused her to take that first step in the journey of faith or in a new direction, but she had to. She had to take the first step, right, on a new path, because that's what life had handed her, and she had the courage to do it. She had the determination to do it. And I was privileged to be there with her as she took these first steps back toward the abundant life that God wanted for her. Again, I can't say too often how sad the life of Lot is. And really, it comes when you read the very last account of him. Lot, when we read the very last account, Lot is actually still in the valley. It's ruined. There's nobody there. The sea is coming in. The salt water is all around. He's living in a cave. He's drinking to excess every day. He's living a morally bankrupt life. Never willing to take that first step out of the valley. Never willing to take that first step to the promised land. Well, friends, that's what God is offering to each and every one of us today. And the big mistakes we make, and every little mistake that we make along the way, God is there offering us forgiveness, telling us we are forgiven, and offering us a direction, a path that will lead us to abundant life here and now and help us to overcome any mistake that we have in our past. To that I say, praise be to God. Amen. Let's bow.